okay?
I'm not sure. Okay.
I think you started recording, yep.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Good evening. Um, Thank you, the facilitator. I would like to welcome everybody to this session, whereby we will be having a presentation uh, done by Dr. Lubayo Moses Babatunde. He will be talking on how to write a good introduction for a technical report. So without much ado, I think Dr. Babatunde, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Just before you come in, sorry. If you have any questions, you can use the chat box. Um, as we progress, you can type in your questions. We'll take your questions immediately after the presentation. Thank you, Dr. Babatunde.
Thank you very much, the moderator, and good afternoon to the audience. Oh, good evening. I hope the weekend is going well. I'll be making a short presentation on how to write a good introduction for a technical report. My name is Babatunde Olubayo Moses, as the moderator has said. I'm affiliated with the Department of Electrical Engineering, Suwannee University of Tech, and the University of Lagos. So the outline of this presentation is going to address the importance of introduction, the function of an effective introduction, the elements of an effective introduction, writing tips, and writing an introduction. Uh, let's start by looking at what a research article or research thesis. In this case, when I say research, I'll be referring to a thesis, either a thesis or either uh, a journal article or a conference article. Most of the time, they share the same in structure. The only difference is that the volume differs. The volume differs. So this figure one shows a typical shape of research article or thesis. As we rightly know, it starts with introduction, then it starts with an abstract, sorry. Then we go into introduction, then we go into methodology. Methodology discusses what have been used in carrying out the research. Then we have the results. The result is telling us what we have been able to do, what you have been able to find from what you have done. And the methodology and the result at the central report section. They are very important too. Then we have the discussion, which links the results to the introduction, where you discuss what you have found out and as it relates to the literature. So some other people may create another section, the literature section, immediately after the introduction, while some other people may merge it with the introduction. But usually I prefer that the introduction section is standing alone, while the detailed literature is also standing alone. So I said after the abstract, which will be the subject for another day, the introduction is probably the most important part of the report. You will agree with me that if you want to say you want to rent an apartment and you get to the apartment, the building is tattered, whereas the inside of the rooms are good. Even mere seeing the tattered building, you will know that, oh, I may not be able to take this. So the introduction is like like an entry point into your research work. So you must take it, as I said, abstract is very, very important. In fact, most papers that get turned down immediately after submission do not have a good abstract that can sell what they have. So in abstract is very important. Also, introduction to is very important. It's very important. And when we say introduction, effective introduction is different from introduction. Effective introduction is what we need. And I said a good way to think of an effective introduction is like the top part of an hourglass, narrowing down from a broad to a specific idea. In your introduction, start in a very large manner, okay, broad manner, this, then you narrow it down to the specific idea you want to present. And most people, when they get your research, when they are very busy, once they read the abstract, what they do, they read the introduction, they look at your results and your conclusion, then they judge you based on that. So many people may not have the time to read everything from your research article, but they pay attention mostly to your introduction. So I say, how important is the introduction? An effective introduction should begin with a narrative that captures the reader's attention and connects with them so that they continue to read. You will agree with me that if you have a very good introduction, it must capture people. It must capture the mind of your readers. Oh, they must listen, you must carry them along, you must build them, you must win their hearts with your introduction. So an effective introduction should begin with a narrative that will capture their attention. And mind you, you must use, while using technical terms, you must try as much as possible to simplify what you are saying, so that, because remember, the people reading your work is not only people in your field. There are some decision makers that may want to pick up your work and see, oh, how do we implement this? So you must be able to capture on the average their attention too. So an effective introduction should capture the mind of the readers. It's very key. It's very key. Then functions. What are the functions of an effective introduction? The first one that I'll be able to identify based on my experience is that it provides background to the situation on ground. Oh, okay. When you want to present it, you remember that not everybody is aware of what is happening in that field. So you have to shed more light. You have to shed light. It's a background of the research, which will now lead us to what you want to do. So it provides a background, that is, shed light on what is obtainable in that field. Then it identifies the problem. You will agree with me that while you are shedding light, you will be able to identify, okay, this is the problem, these are the problems, these are the problems, or this is the problem. So your introduction must be able to identify why we need to carry out the research. Also, while you have seen the problem, you need to argue why the problem needs to be solved. You agree with me that it's not every problem that people will agree with you that you should solve, because you have to present it to them that, oh, if I want to use $10 million, for example, to solve a problem, that at the end of the day, the profit I will get is $2,000. Then there's no need for that. So you have to argue why the problem you have identified needs to be solved. Also, your introduction must find a way of capturing and summarizing the solution approach. It must maybe brush through it. Okay, you provide an hint. You provide hints on, oh, this is the direction that is likely we go to get a solution. What are the functions of effective introduction? Effective introduction will portray your credibility as a writer. Once I read your introduction, I will know if you have the knowledge of what you are doing or what you claim that you are doing. It must demonstrate that the writer has goodwill. You know, some researchers, they don't have goodwill because they just come in maybe to condemn or do this or do that. But in your introduction, you'll be able to, when you argue your points, you must bring all the points, all the ideas of people together, acknowledging what they have done, then bringing what you want to do. Then it will show if you have the knowledge of scope, if you understand the complexity of what you are trying to do. Because if you don't understand the complexity of what you are trying to do, then how do you provide solution? So your introduction should show that. Then your introduction should give a thoughtful solution, as I said earlier. Now, we go to elements of effective introduction. You know, for everything to, based on my experience, you have to, there are some things that if you put together to give you effective introduction, they may be more than that, but there are basic ones that you must invest in to give a very good introduction. So I say writing an introduction. The introduction answers the following question: what am I studying? What am I studying? You have to tell us, oh, this is what I'm studying. This is what I'm studying. That introduction must bring out what you want to study. It must portray what you want to study. Then why is it an important question? What you want to be, your focus. Why is it important to the people? Why is it important to the academic world? You must tell us why. So your introduction must try as much as possible to capture that. Then why should the reader read on? You must be able to answer why they must read on. Why is it important? What do we know already about what is happening? You must give us historic background of what is happening in that field. What is happening in that field? And what basis do I need to provide so that the reader can understand my story? You must provide basic knowledge of the problem so that the people that will pick up the research will not be bored. You know, there are some research you pick up these days, you can read them for 1 year, you understand what they are saying. But you must try as much as possible to simplify it so that you carry your readers along. So elements of effective introduction. It includes a statement of goal of study, why the study was undertaken. So we must provide a goal. Usually the goal is provided when you have discussed when you have provided the background, discuss the problem, then you now tell us why your research is different. Why are you coming in? You must provide that. It set the context for your proposed project and must capture the reader's interest. I've said that earlier. Then it explains the background of your study, starting from the broader picture, narrowing in on your research question. Okay, for example, in my own field, we know that we have energy crisis throughout the world because almost 500 million people don't have access to electricity. So I can start from a broader view, and I can narrow it down to Africa. If I'm targeting Nigeria, I can narrow it down to Africa. Okay, in Africa, so after narrowing that to Africa, I can come to sub-Saharan Africa. Oh, in sub-Saharan Africa, this is the situation of things in sub-Saharan Africa. And I now go down to Nigeria. Oh, this is the amount of people that need electrification. And this is the percentage that Nigeria is contributing to the whole sub-Saharan Africa and to the whole Africa. So we can be able to see the wider picture of what is happening. Okay, I must be able to, then an effective introduction must be able to give sufficient background information to allow readers to understand the context and the significance of the question. Oh, why do we need to address energy issues? Of course, you have to look for a point to support it. Of course, we know about the Sustainable Developmental Goals of United Nations, which says the number 7 item states that by 2030, they want every government or every nation to provide affordable and clean energy for all. That solves the problem. But in doing all this, I want to solve an energy problem. I have to review what people have done. Okay, what has been known on the field. That is, you review what is known about the research topic as far as it is relevant to the work. You only pick relevant literature to back it up. Then you cite the relevant references appropriately. Yeah, the next thing is that all cited work should be directly relevant to the goal of the thesis. You don't just go and bring anything and just put it in. No, they must be directly relevant, closely relevant. You must give enough references such that the readers could, by going to the library or online, achieve a sophisticated understanding of the context. Of course, you cannot put every idea about that research in the introduction. You have to, for people to know more and read more, you have to put enough references that can guide them appropriately. Then you try to cite those who have the idea or idea phase. Maybe you go to the basics of who started, what you wanted to do, you go there, you cite them, but you must also cite those that have done the most recent research that are relevant to the subject. You must try as much as possible to provide, you must try as much as possible to provide relevant and recent works. In fact, the most recent works will give you the idea of what has not been done to guide you. Then, as I said earlier, this is not a place to summarize everything that you have ever read on the subject. Not that you now bring it, by the time you now finish, if you are writing a journal paper, by the time you finish your introduction, you have maybe 10 pages, 15 pages, or your thesis. You are now, your introduction is now going to 50 pages. No. You try as much as possible to summarize, then you give appropriate references that people can consult. Then you explain the scope of your work, what will and will not be included. You can delimit the work in your introduction so that at the first glance, somebody will not be asking a question that is not relevant because you have been able to tell them, oh, this work, we only cover this, we cover this, we cover that. Then should be at the level that makes it easy to understand for readers with a general science background. For example, your peers, your advisors, decision makers, you write it in such a way that once they pick it, they can understand it. Even investors, you try as much as possible to make the work understandable to, you try as much as possible to make the work understandable to investors too. So it's very important to write in simple language while still maintaining your technical terms. Your technical terms, they are very important because that will show your understanding of the work. But you must maintain simple grammar so that you carry majority of the stakeholders along. So now we are moving to some tips based on my personal experience on how to write good introduction. I say for long introduction, you give the readers already an indication earlier of what questions you'll be addressing. Because if you, let's say you are writing a thesis and your introduction is going to maybe 4 or 5 pages, you have to, at the beginning, so that you don't lose them, you have to give them a tip of the iceberg of what you are trying to do. Then be sure to include a hook at the beginning of the introduction. The hook is like something to grab their attention so that they follow you. I say this is a statement of something sufficiently interesting to motivate your readers to read the rest of the paper. It is an important and interesting scientific problem that your paper either solves or addresses. You try and paraphrase it. Then you should draw the reader in and make them want to read the rest of the paper. The way you write it, you make them to carry them along You drag them along. Then it can be useful to sketch out the introduction backwards. You start with the specific focus of your study and work upward to a broader context. Okay, you know what you want to approach. You have read a lot of literature, so you know what you want to solve. Then you can now come, okay, I know that I want to solve energy problem in Nigeria. Then what is the situation in Africa? What's the position of Nigeria in Africa? Oh, okay, this is the position of Nigeria in Africa. Even Africa in the spotlight, was the context in which Africa is standing? Oh, okay, is it a global problem too? Oh, it's a global problem. So you see, okay, if it's a global problem, what are the policies supporting this? Are there existing policies supporting this? So you've been able to work from what you want to do upward to the bigger limelight. Then you can break up the introduction into sections. You can break it up into sections, into logical segments by using subheadings. There's some introduction like thesis that has subheadings. So you have to try and if it's a thesis, you can put subheadings and that. So I'll be concluding based on this. You don't just write an introduction for the sake of it. It must be effective. If your introduction is not effective, even though you have a very good work, it will be it's likely that they judge it, they misjudge what you have done. Some people may be pissed off and they drop your work. If it's going to a reviewer, you may have a problem with the reviewer and get a rejection letter. If it's to an examiner, it may lower your chances of achieving good grades. Thank you very much. I will want to share a typical introduction with you. Let me see. Okay. This is a typical introduction on renewable energy for low-income earners. If you look at it, the first paragraph talks about the importance of energy. It talks about what energy is able to do. Then the second paragraph talks about the challenges faced by developing countries in terms of energy. It shows, oh, this is what is happening. Then the next paragraph talks about numbers, figures. Oh, in the world, this is the number of people in sub-Saharan Africa. This is the number of people that are having problems. And if you look at this appropriately, references are being cited appropriately for every fact, for everything. They are being cited appropriately. Then if you look at it, it narrows it down to sub-Saharan Africa, as I said the other time, with specific interest in Nigeria. The figures in Nigeria too were thrown out and cited. Then the problem, this is unreliable, insufficient, and consequently the cause of energy poverty. Now you have been able to tell us, oh, I'm addressing energy poverty. Okay. Then if you look at it now, as it goes, we're able to talk about, oh, now we have decrease in prices of renewable energy technologies. If you look at it, it's like it's a solution, is a pointer to a solution that, oh, if these things, if the prices of these things are coming down, then we may be able to use them. Then now to the bigger scope, to accomplish sustainable developmental goal. Now, this second to the last paragraph is now talking about the problem itself. The problem, what do we want to do? We want to accomplish the sustainable developmental goal in relation to affordable and clean energy. That paragraph has been able to do that. Then if you look at that now, specifically the questions that the research is going to answer is being spelled out. What is the economic benefit of adopting hybrid renewable energy system for low income earners? The next one says, what environmental value does a hybrid renewable energy system offer consumer? And the last one is talking about how can an optimal hybrid renewable energy system architecture be acquired by low-income earner. Now, these questions were further explained so that, oh, anybody that is reading will know, oh, this is what this means, this is what this means, this is what this means. So after that, you now tell us briefly where this paragraph, the last sentence tells us briefly the case study, where the case study is being carried out. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Babatunde, for that wonderful presentation. It's very much interesting to share from your wealth of experience. I think we'll now take questions. We have some questions in the chat box already. The first question says, what is the maximum number of pages for a good introduction section for a BSc or a MSc project?
Oh, okay. You know, as you have rightly said, there's no number of pages that is adequate as a standard. No, there's no standard. Let me put it like that. But what we have is that you must try as much as possible to capture the attention of your readers while remembering that you must not bore them too. So typically for a thesis, for a PhD thesis, by the time you have something like, let me see, maximum of 10 pages is enough. And that 10 pages will have captured, your aim, all those things will have captured it. Will have captured, depending on the template that your school is using, will have captured those basic things. And if you are writing, let's say, a journal paper, you know, you have to look at the journal if they have limits on the number of pages. So if there's limit on the number of pages, that means you have to, well, by the time you write a 1 page for an introduction, it should be effective enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babatunde. The second question says, it says, okay. Yes, sir. Who are the stakeholders?
Okay. The first thing is that depending on the research you are working on, for me, if I'm talking about a hybrid renewable energy system, of course, the first people that are stakeholder are the target audience, the decision makers, the masses. When I say masses, I mean the target case study, the people that you are targeting, the stakeholders, government organizations that may pick up your work, investors may want to pick up your work. So those kind of people are stakeholders. Then if you are publishing your work, reviewers are stakeholders. You get it? So there are a lot of stakeholders. You have to just sit down and think about your project, then you'll be able to define your stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babatunde. The next question says, some research areas are significantly technical in nature. How can a writer ensure that a layman or young researcher or someone new to the field understands the technical write-up? In other words, to what level of simplicity can a writer go?
Yeah, as simple as it can be. You know, you can write in, not you have to write your technical languages good, but you have to paint a scenario, because there are so many works. If you go to Google Scholar, there are so many works that nobody has cited because they are too difficult to read, not to even talk of understand. Then when you understand, you will be able to cite them. So you just have to come down to a level that is just acceptable, that you think, oh, this is the last level I can write. You know, there are some work, when you are doing some work, when you read some work, you won't understand. But there'll be some day you just see one work that will break down what the other people have not broken down. So is relative, but you try as much as possible to carry your audience and write simple. Once you write simple grammar mixed with your technical terms, I don't think people will have problem.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we have exhausted the questions that we have in the chat box, and I see that we have like a couple of minutes more. If anyone has a question, maybe you can just unmute and ask your question quickly before we close the window for questions.
Hello, Dr. Babatunde.
Hello, sir.
My name is Michael Mizumune.
Okay, one name. Well done, sir.
Thank you for the presentation. It's a good one. I agree with you on most of what you've said. But there is a place I have a problem, which is, as I said, I agree with you. But it's just as regards the area of that we capture the minds of the readers, whoever it is, whether it is a peer-reviewed journal, your supervisor, or whoever it is, because all what you said tend to be subjective. What will capture your heart, what will capture your mind, will be different from what will capture the mind of somebody else, and what will capture the mind of. And that does not mean that does not have anything to do with the personality of the person. But so how do you, because that was why I say it's subjective. So how do you come to the barest minimum to see that, oh, what this project or this my write-up will capture an average person who is going to read this, so that you will not have the problem? Because sometimes we see people writing papers being rejected by a journal, and another journal is taking that same paper to publish it with minimal corrections and minimal additions or subtractions. So how do you come down to the barest minimum, to the point that your write-up is likely to capture anybody who reads that write-up? Thank you. I hope you got my question.
All right.
So Babatunde, 1 minute to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you very much. The only way to capture the mind of your readers is to identify your readers, identify the stakeholders. As I said, after identifying the stakeholders, then the way you write must be simple enough for everyone to understand. And let me tell you, if you write, then another thing is that some people don't have research to do, because they don't have a good argument for their research. That's what I mean. If you have a good argument to carry out your research, and you are able to, with respect to journal paper, I'm trying to answer what you said. If you are able to write and argue your point clearly, then you identify the goal, the aim of that journal. If it's in the scope of that journal, I think the worst you can get is a revision, is a major revision, not a reject. So you argue your points properly.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babatunde. I like that aspect when you talked about aligning one's write-up to the aims and scope of the journal. Quite critical. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, you can still maybe drop them in the chat box. We'll try and maybe respond and drop your emails, respond to you via email. The presentation is also available, will be shared. If you have your emails, you can drop them in the chat box, and it will also be uploaded on the website. So I have posted the link to the site on the chat box. So it's been a wonderful time today. Thank you everyone for taking time to attend today's seminar. I believe that we've learned one thing or the other. I also want to thank specifically Dr. Babatunde for your sharing with us, from his big bank of knowledge. Thank you very much. I will look forward to hearing from you again. Till next time that we'll meet again, just check our website. You also get I think an invite if you have our emails. I mean, if you have your emails, so we can send out invites to you, and hopefully that we engage further regarding the area of research. Thank you very much, everyone. I think we can now close the meeting.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Babatunde, for the free seminar and the free tutorial on how to write papers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir, Dr. Babatunde.
Yeah,
it was very enlightening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Nice.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.